And we're streaming. I think.
Oh, I can check your Twitch channel
Yep, here
if
we
you
go.
want.
Here we go.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
How's
everyone.
everybody?
Sorry. 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 I was just talking over people. Hi, everyone. I was just going to introduce... I was just going to say hi to all the audience. That's all I was going to do. So, are you guys good for me to do that?
Go
Go
for it.
right ahead.
Okay. Hello to our audience. Hi. This was supposed to start at 10 Eastern Time, and it is now 10:33 Eastern Time, but we've got it now. Hello. This is the first annual Aspec representation state of Aspec representation thing. I'm sorry. This is my first time, if you can tell, which I'm sure you can. Oh, I don't. Anyways, so while I potentially muck around with this stuff a little bit more, because apparently tech issues can't just stop. But we are streaming and everything's mostly functioning. Can people go through and just like give their names and like just their how they identify, if you're willing to do that, in terms of where you are on the A spectrum, or the arrow spectrum as it may be, and just give a little bit of background about like why you're interested in being on this panel, why you're here tonight.
I guess I could start.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rachel. I use she, her pronouns. I consider myself asexual and biromantic. When Adam was looking for volunteers to talk tonight, I decided to join because, like, I feel like my experiences being asexual have been kind of different from a lot of other people that I've talked to in recent years. And so I think that it would be valuable for me to hear people's perspectives, and I think it would be valuable for other people to hear my perspectives. So, yeah.
I can go next if
Yeah,
no one
go ahead.
else wants to. Hi, I am Shannon. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I am demisexual. And if you are coming in as someone who doesn't know a ton about the different sort of subgenres of the asexual spectrum, that is very limited sexual attraction to people, and usually under the precondition of already being either in a close platonic or romantic relationship. I am personally in a relationship currently, very straight passing, but still, queer. So I think that's kind of where my perspective is coming from, and what you would want to know about me to frame my perspectives on things.
Great, thank you. Let's go next.
So I'm Tiger Songbird. Most people probably know me, Tiger Songbird, on all my social medias, Instagram and Twitter. I am a prominent ace writer, activist, journalist, and I've run multiple subreddits for asexuality. I wanted to join this subreddit to discuss diversity in ace representation, um, to discuss um, the power of having representation and ace representation of um, all different ethnicities, backgrounds, um, race, and everything included. So that was something very important to me. Having just ace representation in general, being someone who's been uh, out in ace for the last 7 years. By the way, I'm aro ace, so aromantic asexual. So if you are not perfectly familiar with what aro ace is, so having the multiplicity and ace representation is a big deal to me. Having ace representation that's done well is a big deal to me. So often, and my experiences through years with ace representation is that it's been incomplete and often flawed uh, with ace representation, and that so much gets left out of the entire framework or story arcs often told with ace characters. So that's why I really considered it a high priority to want to be here so we could discuss this and you know make this a priority, so that maybe writers, script writers, authors, um, anyone in music, television, media that want to discuss this, as I've written many times, will actually take heed to what we all say and maybe get accurate representation of asexuality done, so that everyone um, is benefited from it, ace and allo.
My name's Emily. She, her. I'm also Arrow Ace. Um, I saw this panel last year about talking about asexual characters in fiction, and I was really interested in it. And since in the past year, I've been like learning a lot more about the asexual community and like learning a lot more about meeting a lot more people in the asexual community. So I thought it'd be nice to like talk to more people about it, get their opinions. And I'm studying creative writing and screenwriting, and I'd like to include asexual characters in the future to represent my community. And so I'd like to get some thoughts on like the do's and don'ts, as opposed to just me as one ace trying to figure it out.
Thank you, everyone. And I am Adam. My pronouns are he, him. And I am a alloromantic asexual. And I just sort of whipped this up very quickly, which is why we had so many tech issues and everything like that. But I'm hoping to make this a annual thing, as the social media post said. I really want to sort of check in on like the state of Aspec representation every year and hopefully talk about, where are we? What's the state of things? Is it good? Do we have ways to go? Where do we want it to go? And hopefully get, diverse voices to speak about what representation means, what it is, what it should be. So I really thank you all for being here and being voices that can contribute to that conversation.
Thank you for inviting us.
So, we have a few questions that we're going to use as prompts, and then we can, we'll talk about each of them, and then we figured this is going to be about 90 minutes. We did start late, but I'm still going to try and go 90 minutes, if people are okay with that. We'll go through these questions, and then if we have time still, we'll do a Q&A where people can ask their own questions and we can talk about those. So the first question, or prompt, or whatever you want to call it, is, and this applies to all mediums. How do you feel about the Aspec characters that are talked about most? And are there any Aspec characters that you wish were talked about more?
you want us to just chime in, or are you gonna like call on us just to make it, just so I'm sure?
We can. I figure whoever has something to say, you can say it, and but we'll still go from one to one, but we don't have to necessarily do it in a specific order. Just Emily, you can have something to say, and then Shannon, and then Rachel, and then Tiger. But maybe you could also be, could be Tiger, and then Emily, and then Rachel. Whatever. We'll still do it one by one. Make sure everyone has something to say. Has their time to say it. But it doesn't have to be in a specific order.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm someone who mostly engages with video games, so there's not a lot of characters that I can really point to and say, that person's asexual. That's really cool. I know that Gwenpool recently came out as Aero Ace. That it's awesome to me in theory, because I haven't picked up a Marvel comic in a very long time, unfortunately. But I did read the panels where she came out, and I thought that was really sweet. I watched. I've seen all of Heartstopper. I know about Isaac Henderson's whole coming out character arc, and I thought that he was very relatable. In particular, how he was so laser focused on reading books. That was something that that definitely spoke to my teenage self. And I know that it's not just somebody half-assing that sort of thing. I know that Alice Osman is Aero Ace, so it's really cool that they got to share their own story on screen like that. I didn't relate to all of it, but I figure that's okay. I don't have to relate to everything about a specific character just because we share the same identity. It's whatever. Doom guy from the demon killer from Doom, I think is a very fun and entertaining example of a canon Aero Ace character. Word of God, unfortunately, but I'm honestly gonna take it because the head, I think it was the head programmer said that Doom guy does not have sex. He's not interested in relationships. He is just interested in killing demons, and that's it. I always felt that was a really fun contrast between this guy he looks like the pinnacle of masculinity, but he is not engaging with women in that way. Period. End of story. Let's see. There's also Maya from Borderlands 2 and 3. Also kind of a Word of God moment, unfortunately, but one of the writers of the Borderlands series, Anthony Birch, confirmed in an Ask.fm post that the playable character from Borderlands 2, Maya, is aromantic and asexual. He always saw her as asexual, and she explicitly says, I don't know anything about romance in Borderlands 2. Now, unfortunately, the people in Borderlands 3 decided to kill her off, before they could actually explore anything in depth with that. And the way they used her after her death left a very bad taste in my mouth, and it was pretty clear that the authors, the writers rather, of that game just did not care at all about her sexuality. the last scene that we have with her is basically her being the doting housewife in the mind of a man who's been in love with her for 7 years. Like, can we not do that with Aro Ace people, please? That's just so gross. I really would have preferred like a story where they like he accepted her as a friend, not as like a romantic potential partner. And one more thing that I think is, it's not Ace Rep specifically, but it's still like something that resonated with me as an asexual person. There's a scene in, I think it was season 4 of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Spoilers for that. Please watch Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It's so good. The main character's boss. Oh, sorry?
No, sorry. I'll be quiet. Sorry. There's just something happened.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Something just happened where you and Tiger switched places.
Yeah, the
Oh,
graphics
yeah.
are weird. Only on your end, Adam, it looks like, because I can see it on your stream, but not on my Discord.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see what happened. Okay.
Anyways, please keep going.
So, in season 4 of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the main character's friend and boss decides that he really, really wants to have a baby. But he's not in a relationship at that time. And he's just gotten out of a relationship with his former boyfriend. And so he's not interested in using a romantic relationship as like an avenue towards having a child. And so there's an episode where there's like a string of bad luck that he has with the local egg donor facility, organization, not really sure what the name for that is. Point is, he can't get a suitable egg from them to have a baby. So what the main character does is she decides that she will donate an egg to him so that he can have a baby. And then, and this is like 100% framed as like she's doing a favor for a friend, by the way. This is not like she's romantically interested in him. It's not like he's romantically interested in her. It's very clearly established that they are friends. There's not going to be any kind of romantic entanglement between them ever. Sorry?
Sorry.
What's up?
I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, but I do need to keep this a little focused. Was that, are you like,
This is the last thing that
Okay.
I was going to talk about.
all right,
But if-
I just want to make sure, because especially because Tiger just said he doesn't know how long he has.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude.
It's okay. It's okay. I totally understand. So she's donating the egg. It's a friend thing. Her roommate and friend decides to be the one to fertilize, to have the egg and sperm incubate in her uterus. Again, as a friend thing, not a romantic thing. And this is like all treated as a completely normal thing for them to do. It's not treated as something super weird and unique. And so since like being aromantic and asexual absolutely makes you like a person who's going to have like a different family setup, it felt really good seeing that type of thing normalized on TV.
Great, thank you. So, Uh, just switch places again. Anyways, Tiger, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah. I guess in my case, um, the one thing I would say about any, I know we talk a lot about like the main ones we talk about are like Todd from BoJack Horseman, which I particularly love Todd, in that degree, um, because Todd was really one of the first ones to really do it so well in the BoJack Horseman team. Really reached out to the Ace community, and that was a really great indicator of like how to really like understand the community you're writing about, and to understand like Ace people, getting to know us, having us in writer rooms, and having us in the adaptation stories, helping to detail the stories out was really amazing, and I'm just really glad that they did that. Um, I would love to honestly though see a Connor Hawk portrayal. Like Marvel's done, well, I guess it's DC, but DC has done so much portrayals um, of their different cast of superheroes. I just want to see like one for Connor Hawk. I feel like they. I would like to see a storyline with an actual Ace, like I guess guy that's not done so problematically. You know, Riverdale was done with Jughead, the erasure from Jughead, and then Sherlock, and they try to erase Sherlock and make him romantically interested, and he's but even the producers like, well, what would a storyline be with there wasn't any romantic interest? I would personally love to see Connor Hawke. He doesn't have the aromantic aspect to him, but like the asexual aspect to a guy to like want a deeper connection and stuff like that before, and being in a romantic relationship but not wanting the sexual part. Um, and it just showed that you can have love without sex the same way you can have sex without love, and I would love to see that. I would love to see storyline portrayals, um, with like, especially for asexual men, because it just was not often seen when I was growing up. I know there's very scant just ace representation in general with just regardless of gender, but you look at like Yelena Belova. I felt like she didn't get enough of a story, and I just love to see like, oh, they're superheroes and they're like, you know but they still have a story, and it still includes, and I'd love to see the story where it doesn't disinclude um, the asexual component. When they made Connor Hawk, you could tell from the all the different storylines. It was like, yeah, Connor Hawk is has air has asexual parts to about him because he just never was interested. I would love to see that because I think it would be huge to get like a DC character to reach so many more people. I think there would just be like a superhero, and it would be a greater discussion, in my opinion, with the asexual to talk about, um, what is romance, what is relationships, um, what goes into a relationship, and then we could have the discussion to um, have romance without sex, and then also have the diversity of ace representation within that. So I feel like that's a really big thing. But my main thing is like, we don't often get into the attitudes toward sex. Like, we don't have sex repulsed and sex. Most people hardly even know those sex repulsed, sex, you know, favorable, sex indifferent people. So, um, I guess my main thing is, regardless of what the representation will be, at least have, different attitudes of aces, different shades of aces and aceness, um, within that regard. So like um, having a sex repulse ace, because I think a lot of people will know that, but understanding even in that, like, what sex repulse is, not like just think sex is bad, 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 but more like you could be sex repulsive, sex positive at the same time. So I guess it's just the different variation.
Who's Connor Hawk, by the way?
He's the son of the Green Arrow. DC did
Oh.
a profile of Connor Hawk last year for its Pride Month, which was really awesome. And um, I just love to see like a representation. Plus, he's also like a somewhat ace of color at points. Some of the depictions kind of have him like brown or somewhat brown, and some have him like with different melanated skin, and it would be really awesome to have that as well because it'd be like totally bust the stereotype that like all people of color tend to be like hypersexual and stuff like that. That people love to throw out at us as being uncontrollable, insatiable, and stuff like that because of our race. Which is why I love Sharonda J. Brown's book, um, Refusing Compulsory Sexuality, Black Lens, talking about that and talking about the different stereotypes that are assigned through white supremacy towards Black people and where they come from, and then how they're still perpetuated to this day. I think it would be awesome to have like an ace of color for sure be represented in that table. So that's something big. I'm also a writer as well, so I understand like the script writing and everything. That's just why I want to write a story and write a novel featuring an ace character, particularly growing up in contexts like what I grew up in, like in Bible Belt, where the expectation is you have to get married and all that. So I that's kind of my answer. It's multifaceted. I don't know if we have a character I would love to speak more about other than maybe Connor Hawk or Yelena Belova, who are both part of the superhero universe. But we need to create more just figures in general and to create more aces so people can know like different sides to being ace. There's more to it than just one type.
I'd like to actually, you mentioned Sherlock and Ace Erasure, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit because a lot of characters that are, and this also ties into Eve 666 Queen's comment about having things be hand of Gaudy can be, or sorry, word of God can be a little bit irritating, but in some regards, especially with ace representation, even more than other identities, I find that people, and myself included, are very quick to jump on someone displaying perhaps asexual tendencies and then code them as gay or lesbians, uh, just by virtue of, oh, well, they're not interested in people of the opposite gender. Um, and I I think that's something that maybe with more canon queer characters in general that will also help us in the ace community. But I do think it's interesting that in a society that is still has issues with a lot of queer identities, that we would still rather make someone gay than ace, and that it is insidious enough that I myself, as an ace person, am like, yeah, Sherlock gay, obviously. Elsa from Frozen had like one friendly moment with one female character, and it's like, Elsa gay maybe? It's like, I don't know, she's been pretty like, pretty arrow ace the entire rest of the movies. The most recent that comes to mind is Barbie, from like stereotypical Barbie from the Barbie movie. It didn't even like, she is extremely ace coded, and it's arguably like enough that it should not be considered headcanon. It's like pretty in the text, just not explicitly stated. Um, because she has a boyfriend. She's boyfriend girlfriend with Ken, and is just displays absolutely no interest in him, like romantically or sexually. Throughout the entire movie, even before her world starts falling apart and the plot kicks in. That didn't occur to me until it was like this one footnote comment at the end of an unrelated video where the creator of the video was like, "Oh, and by the way, we stand ace rep stereotypical Barbie." And I was like, "How did I not see that?" Like, it's so obviously there the entire time, but I think also part of the problem is it's very hard to notice the absence of something. Um, and I think there's probably a lot of people whose coming out stories as ace people also kind of like have some narrative of like, yeah, I didn't figure it out because how do you notice the absence of something? It's a lot harder than noticing
real.
the presence of something. Um, yeah, those are my two pieces though. I have not dived into enough of like, I mean, the BoJack Horseman's pretty popular, but I don't think I personally consume a lot of fringe media, and I don't go seeking out stuff that has ace representation, and just by virtue of that, haven't experienced a lot, which is probably a separate, uh, a whole separate comment about how it's so non-mainstream that it's hard to just find it naturally.
Speaking on that Barbie comment, I actually wrote an article for Barbie as well, which was really something to discuss because I love the. I wrote two articles. One Barbie, and then your comment actually inspired me to remember another one, which was Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, who, to, to all estimations, when you look at her character, is totally asexual. Um, um, the fact, I think she said she only likes Roger because Roger makes her laugh. The whole part of really being like not really sexual herself, but more about like everyone else sexualizes her for the way she looks. And I love like talking about that because of like for aces who are like there's such a stereotype about asexuality that's like, oh, ace people they must only be ace because don't you're not typically what they would consider like aesthetically attractive by beauty standards, but like there are aces who often get dismissed. Look at Yasmin Benoit, who like
Mm-hmm.
tends to fit like beauty standards and stuff like that. And people will say, well, she shouldn't dress that way if she's, asexual, or she shouldn't look this way if she's, gonna call herself ace. She's totally sexualized. Why would you dress like that? Or, stuff like that. And, people will often say like, well, if you look a certain way, you can't be asexual because you're not supposed to be like attractive and be asexual. Like that's just like for some reason so many people tend to take umbrage with that. I don't get it at all, but it's like it does matter a big deal. It would be like really big to like have a character, have characters like Barbie, like Jessica Rabbit, who like, yeah, they're attractive because other people think that about them, but they're not sexual. Like the way you dress doesn't determine your sexual orientation. It's not by how you look. It's more about like people if they find you attractive because your looks, but and then they get mad at being asexual. That's their business. That's their problem. So I would love to see that more often and just kind of discuss. That would be really cool. Um, have like aces with like not typically fitting like the like obviously stereotypical asexual should never exist, but like we talk about unassailable asexuals and like you should look a certain way, this, but also you still want to debunk the stereotype that like you can be pretty or you can be good looking or look fit all beauty standards and stuff like that and be asexual. It's not about what you look like or if people find you not believing that because you look a certain way, then that tells more about them than it does about you. So,
Right. Your identity is not conditional. Right?
yeah, it's not
Mm-hmm.
wrapped up in your it's not wrapped in your clothes. Clothes don't make your sexuality, and it's almost like rape. It's rape culture when people say that.
Yeah,
not to,
absolutely. Yeah, I
especially
mean,
Yeah.
obviously, particularly with women, right? You're sexy, therefore you have to be sexual.
or,
Therefore, you have to
or
be someone who reciprocates this feeling I have towards you.
or you look this way, you were tempting me by how you dress, and I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
That feeling.
Emily, what's your turn? I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something that Rachel mentioned about Gwenpool. I did read the five Gwenpool issues where she like discovered her aromanticism and asexuality, and I don't know, that like really resonated with me, that story in particular, because her
I'm
journey
glad.
into like discovering that wasn't like a straight line. It was like, you know, she didn't even know asexuality. And when she first started figuring out, she's like, okay, time to find a boyfriend. Like the boys are in the books. I want a boyfriend like boys in the books. That is my goal.
Oh
Time
boy.
to exactly. So she was like, okay, I did it. I have acquired a boyfriend. This isn't doing anything for me. All right, I know what I need to do. I need to acquire a girlfriend. That'll fix it. So she like gets a girlfriend, and she like feels butterflies like when she first gets the girlfriend, but it was like, but then she realizes retroactively that the butterflies were like not really about attraction, but about like the excitement of like I have achieved social status of having girlfriend. So it was like, you know, that's also something I was like, oh yeah, that like made, you know, I understand that, like that makes a lot of sense to me. And so when she finally like figured it out, you know, and she like when she got like a name, like a label for like what she was going through, it was like her whole perspective changed, and I was like, oh dang, I feel that. Why am I crying? What? So it was like super good, and probably like the best. Again,
That's
I haven't,
awesome.
I'm not gonna claim to like have read or seen like all the asexual media, but that was definitely my favorite one that I have seen by far so far. Um, yeah, that was just handled really well, and there was like a lot of asexual people and aromantic people behind the scenes. What else did I want to touch on? Yeah, so my brother is asexual, and he watches Heartstopper, so I watch Heartstopper in the background, so I have a vague idea what's going on. Most of what I know is like what he's like ranted to me about, but when he was telling me about Isaac from Heartstopper, he was saying that he liked Isaac's like, you know, coming out story as asexual. He thought it was portrayed pretty well, but he's Isaac in the narrative. Again, this is just what my brother's told me, so like if I'm wrong, let me know.
Mhm.
But he said that he felt that Isaac in the narrative was like getting, you know, kind of poked fun at by his friends. They were like kind of joking that like, oh, you know, you get like basically he was being dismissed by his friends. His friends only had interest in him for his like love life when they thought he had like a crush on a guy or vice versa. And then when he
Yeah,
came
that
out as
did kind of happen.
yeah, yeah. And then when he eventually came out as, but like the narrative was criticizing that, and then he came out as ace, and then like it was basically like the French shouldn't have done that was like the lesson to be taken. But then the narrative didn't
Mhm.
really focus on Isaac for a while until Isaac did have like a crush on a guy, like romantic later. So then it was like kind of contradicting itself in an ironic way of like the lesson that it was
Well,
preaching compared to like
That's
later when it
not
did focus on
quite
Isaac.
what happened, but
I,
I'll get to
he
that
didn't.
after you're done.
okay, yeah. Again, this is just like what my brother felt watching it and what he told me. Um,
Okay.
the last thing I wanted to add is this is word of God, but Dan Povenmire said that Perry the Platypus is ace, and I'll take it because I think it's kind of hard for Perry the Platypus to come out, you know, considering, you know, he doesn't talk.
He doesn't
And also,
speak.
yeah, exactly. And also, I feel like that he is too busy defeating Doofenshmirtz to like try to focus on discovering his sexuality. So I'll take that. I'll take that word of God.
So, yeah, no, these are all really great things, and you know, obviously there are a bunch of, you know, Aspec characters that do hit the mainstream, right? These are the characters that we prop up, right? Or that we just are like, this is, you know, what we want, right? We have obviously Alice Oseman, uh, is, you know, has the book Loveless, right? Now I don't know that much about Loveless, but I know that it's a book that's spoken to many people on the who are Aspec, um, and part of that is why a lot of people were very excited about the Aspec storyline in Heartstopper coming up. Um, now, I will say that Isaac very much did not have a crush on a guy. the
Yeah.
whole point of that relationship was him feeling like, okay, I am in a relationship, but I don't feel right. This doesn't feel like it's supposed to feel.
That's what I got from it
He
too.
was he felt forced of hand. Like all his friends were like, "You've got to have a romantic partner. If you don't, then what is your life about? What is your existence about?" Which is often told to like people, if you don't love anyone, then what? Or if you don't love anyone, you must be like an alien, or you must be cold, or you must be a, a robot with no feelings. Like you have no purpose to life without a romantic partner. So he was being pressured underneath that. Yeah.
Yeah.
As someone who's arrow ace, I related deeply to Isaac for that alone. And he, where people were trying to pigeonhole him into relationships, have had that happen quite a lot, where people have tried to force your hand into so many times into a relationship that you don't want to be in. Like, oh, this person, they're single and you're single, so why not date? And it's like, I don't want to. It actually, Isaac ends up going off on his friends, which was really a great moment. If you saw it, I think it was episode like one of the last episodes when they were like joking, like, and he just finally, that was a moment that I could relate. He just went off and said, "I don't like him. I know you really want to try to make me fit into a relationship, but I don't like him the way you guys are thinking, and I'm just not interested in anyone like that."
Yeah.
He just
That
went
moment was
off.
raw. Oh.
It was. And
That
actually,
was like chef's kiss.
yeah, and I think this gets to a little bit of some of the stuff I wanted to talk about with this first question, which is that there are, like with a character like Isaac, many people did actually feel let down by Isaac. Some people, like you guys, felt seen, and that's awesome.
I mean,
I
I will say, can I interject? I will say, I felt seen by Isaac. I wasn't that I didn't get seen by Isaac or wasn't seen, because like the whole idea of being, being told your whole existence, or you can't have deep relationships without romance, and Isaac and the guy that told him about being Arrow Ace, what Arrow Ace was when he was looking and actually finding that out finally was really big moment, because I would have killed to have had that moment in my lifetime. Someone who was more experienced as an arrow ace being able to tell me how I was feeling all throughout my lifetime, and actually validating and saying it's okay because this is a word. There's a word for that. There's a place for that. I won't say I wasn't felt seen. I just felt the story arc was too short. Like they didn't give him enough time. Like the whole story, I get it. It's Kit Connor and Joseph Locke, their two characters are the two main characters, and then you have Tao and you have Elle, and they're a big part of the story. So I realized like that, but it just felt like everybody got a turn in season 2. Like everybody got stories. How an Elle story developed into a romantic one.
But Isaac had significantly less. He definitely had less. And I think part of that is the whole thing of, like, he is always in his book. Which is his main, like, character trait, basically. In a lot of ways. So I think it's, like, there's absolutely, stuff worthwhile, but I do think that there is stuff to criticize in some of the Aspec rep that we have gotten. I think Isaac is a good one of, like, some people feel like, oh, like, this is the first arc, like, he's gotten in the entire show, really, in a lot of ways, because he just doesn't really get focus the same way a lot of the other characters do, and then he does get this kind of almost, like, Wikipedia definition of aromantic and asexual, from someone who just kind of walks up to him and says that. and there's worth in this, right? Like you were saying, Tiger, like of course we all want someone who just knows something and is able to help us, but I do think there is a little bit of artificiality to it, at least for some people. There certainly was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's also some stuff to criticize about Todd in BoJack Horseman, who gets, obviously held up a lot because he is one of the most in-depth representations we have, and he's certainly the first main character we ever got that was, Ace, and one of the only ones we still have. Um, but I think that there are things about him that when I watched BoJack for the first time, which was only recently, I felt he was actually a lot more shallow than maybe people were able to, maybe the people had often said, or that the Aspec rather was a little more shallow, where we didn't get a lot of focus on it. And there's also the fact that he was the cartoony, goofy character, and like his asexuality story had to share screen time with all the times we were specifically not supposed to take him seriously.
Yeah, he was kind of the comic relief of the group, and it kind of made the whole aces are infantile or childish, so that you're not really an adult or like a real full adult with maturity because you are when you're ace, because apparently that makes you like less like being an adult, like having sex makes you an adult, I guess, kind of trope, which is like really negative and problematic all in of itself. So yeah, I that's why I was like I want to kind of move past the BoJack Horseman variety where we do have like aces who are more mature, especially like having older aces. We have aces. Usually aces are portrayed in like high school or young adulthood. Um, I'm trying to think DC Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
With Spooner, she's like a teenager. It was a
Oh,
big
she's
moment
not a
because it's
teenager.
also an ace. Oh, she's, but it's kind of a show dedicated because it's CW, so it's kind of dedicated to the teen audience, right?
Yeah, I mean the
So
the characters there are definitely they're adults, but it is for sure a show
yeah,
that is for generally young adult audiences. That was the
yeah,
main demographic.
yeah, yeah. It's like YA. It's YA,
Yeah.
but like I would love to see like aces in their 30s, 40s, 50s, like coming out later, or like maybe they're like discovering like they've grown through years of being like told this is what if you are, and you know for years of having to come through years of working through like compulsory sexuality and mandated, and especially in like different like more conservative cultures where people are told like this is the way to be an adult, or you have to get married by a certain age or stuff like that, or just having older like ace cup like relationships and like like people in the 30s and 40s and 50s, like being in platonic relationships, being in QPPs, being in queer platonic relationships, like forming relationships that are like don't thrive off sex, but are meaningful, living together kind of relationships where you do life together and have like a relationship that's genuine, authentic, and viscerally raw, and having like relationships with conflict, with drama at the same time, but also having that ace joy of being together, being in forming relationships, showing that relationships don't require you know it's not about the relationship per se, like having what people do in it. It's about like the intangible qualities that make a relationship special. So that's one thing. I guess that's kind of like the main thing with talking about BoJack Horseman with Todd, is that they made him seem like very infantile, and he does grow through the show at times. He does grow through at moments, especially when he meets Echo Gillette's character. He's a little bit more mature. He does seem more like in his own skin when he comes out as Ace, which was a big moment in the story, which was like, starting out he was feeling so pressured, and then he feels like he's more into his skin. And that's something that I'd love to see more, like that progressive evolution of a character coming into their own and growing into that.
I'd like to finish off this question talking about a character that I think is not discussed very much at all, and really should be, because I consider her to be really one of the best depictions of asexual representation that I've seen so far, which is Drea from the show Everything's Gonna Be Okay. Drea is autistic, and she is sapphic, and she is in a relationship with one of the main characters. She reveals that she is asexual in season 2. So this is after she and her girlfriend have been in a relationship for a bit. And her girlfriend is what has been exploring pornography, and has discovered that she doesn't really like women in that way. So we do already have an interesting sexuality in this main character, where she is not sexually attracted to women, but she is romantically attracted to a girl. And so what we have is, you have these two characters who have to negotiate their preferences and stuff like that, because they do like each other romantically. They like each other a lot. And they have to figure out, all these things. And Drea is pretty confident in her asexuality. But she does have moments where she worries about the fact that she can't provide something that that other people could in that relationship, which is a very relatable thing.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, like I'm confident I'm ace. I know I'm ace. I know I like you, but there's this little thing in the back of my head that says, but I'm supposed to be giving something else. And I like that Drea is not, it's not a whole arc for her, really, but it's still something that bothers her. And so it is a really, really nuanced, wonderful depiction of asexuality that has lots of, negotiating of consent and all these things with people who are very bad at communicating. So you really get to explore a lot of these things, and I think that's a character that really needs to be talked about more and held up more as the kind of representation we should be looking for.
I'm adding that to my watch list immediately.
It's a fantastic show. It only lasted 2 seasons before getting canceled, unfortunately.
Oh, that sucks.
But it ended in a way that was relatively satisfying, at least.
Okay.
So, next question. We talked a little bit about this, but I really would like to go a little bit more into this. Often, characters that are coded as some kind of aspec but unconfirmed in the text make up much of any lists of aspec representation, like on BuzzFeed or whatever, or Screen Rant or whatever. Here's a list of all the asexual characters. Often they're just coded that way. So how do you feel about aspec headcanons, such as Elsa or Sherlock, and how they're discussed in the aspec community, as well as in the wider public discourse? So, for example, holding them up as, ace icons, right? Sometimes, for me, that kind of praise for a character that is, literally not in the text, calling them an ace icon, sometimes actually bothers me. Or, with something like Elsa, she is arrow ace. She is not ace. calling her an ace icon erases the aromantic part of her for me, and also lumps someone like me in with her, because I'm ace, but she would be arrow ace if she were ever to be confirmed. So there's a lot of discourse that bothers me around some of the ways we discuss coded characters. And what I really want to think, I really want to know what you guys think about these kinds of discussions and how we talk about these characters.
So, I first want to make a distinction, a very hard distinction between characters who are Aro Ace coded versus headcanons that we make for these characters, because one I take a different approach to than the other. Like I think that like when it comes to characters who are quote unquote ace coded, arrow coded, sometimes I feel like that's a really good expansion of what was already placed there. And at times it can fulfill a potential intent that was there, but perhaps the author didn't really have the words to describe it or the culture to describe it. I think of Anzu Hoshino from Romantic Killer, which is a really good anime on Netflix. Everybody should watch it. Sherlock Holmes in multiple different adaptations. Commander Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. I think are all good characters where like saying that they're aromantic and or asexual is a really good expansion of what was already put down there. With someone like Elsa, I take a very, very jaded approach to Disney characters, unfortunately, because I never really saw Elsa that way. I felt like she was more like someone who is in a long line of Disney female characters where like she's very plot focused. She's not focused so much on intimacy with other characters, whether it's romantic or platonic. But the implication always felt to me that Disney was just saying she's just focused on the plot. We are not doing romance with our female characters anymore. But she's still straight though. So watching Frozen and Frozen 2, I unfortunately didn't get a vibe the same way that you guys did when watching those movies in regards to her sexuality. But when it comes to headcanons, I'm like, do what you want, man. If you feel like this thing spoke to you and you want to expand more on that, that is absolutely 100% within your right as a fan of that story, as a fan of that character, to expand on that character in that way, even if what they were putting down doesn't necessarily match up one-to-one with what you were seeing.
Anyone else?
Oh, sorry. I'm on mute. Sorry, I was on mute. See, for me, I get the whole, like, I don't want to be lumped in with the arrow ace section, but I do think it is important to always include the arrow ace with the ace factor, because both talk about, like, different paradigms as to forming relationships in general. And I think it's really important. Like, when I watched Frozen, I actually, my friend, a friend of mine, L Rose, who's a great writer, also did a breakdown of Elsa, why Elsa, they think, why they think Elsa is arrow ace, and I totally agree with them. because Elsa, to me, has even by Adina Menzel standards said Elsa doesn't focus on relationships. She's not interested in romantic relationships, only friendships for her. And I
Oh, I
guess
didn't
kind
know
of
that.
now, yeah. And that's kind of my mentality is that like her best relationship is um, are Olaf and with her best friend, and it's just always been about friends and just friends first, and that's the deepest she likes to get. But I do think including Arrow Ace in that degree is important because like when we talk friends, so many people think just friends, but for Elsa and for many aces like I, who are Arrow Ace, it's not just friends. It's like friends are the most important relationships in our lives. Like without
Mhm.
our friends, we wouldn't really have much. Like we are, it would be much lonelier. It would be much less rich. It'd be harder to navigate without having strong relationships and friendships. And I think having an Elsa kind of character um, that breaks down, or a Joe March from um, Little Women, kind of like in history, historical kind of ace character. We talk about like ace characters who could have been like literature characters who could have been ace. So like Joe March from Little Women, Louisa May Alcott's thriller.
Can you
Um,
expand on that? I'm unfamiliar with Little Women.
uh, Louisa May Alcott's book Little Women, like it takes place during the Civil War. Joe March is a writer, and everyone in her community, her mom, her dad's fighting in the war, but her mom, and she lives with her four sisters and her mom, three sisters really, four girls and a mom, and they're all trying to like we want to get you married because like marriage is the only way to like ensure wealth, and women are considered at that time like property, and you marry for inheritance and for wealth and generations and stuff like that. But like Joe doesn't have any interest in getting married. All she wants to do is write and become a published author. She loves writing. She's her own person, and she doesn't really want a spouse. She doesn't value like those kind of relationships. She just loves her sisters and wants to be around, her sisters and protect them and everything. Like that's just the way that you know Joe March is, and it's the society that's driving her to feel like she has to give in and start finding a romantic partner. But at the end, she doesn't really do that. Um,
Good
and
for
that's the
her.
same thing kind of with like Elsa. Like it's society making an ace character like forcibly be into like romantic relationships when that's not who they are. That's not where they find their authenticity. Just relatable in that way because it shows, of course, you can form a relationship without, you know, it being romantic or sexual. You can have deep relationships. Friendships are not just friends, but I think that's kind of like there's a term for that called a matonormativity, where we just prioritize and make romance the only thing that truly matters, and that everything else, every other relationship is like B tier, and that's just like not like to me. I think that's a big deal to me, and I would so if there's like to have Elsa kind of break that down to show like Elsa and her relationships show that those are like still strong quality relationships, and but they're not romantic, and that Elsa's aromantic and asexual would be like that's awesome to me. Like I would love to see that. Like to me that's something I think not only society needs, like not only aces need, but I think all of society needs as well. Like I think that's
Oh God,
quite
yeah.
valuable, and I think that's something we need to like bring up. So that's why I think Elsa is to me arrow ace. So that's my personal opinion.
Fair enough.
I just tried to clarify what I was trying to say a little bit in the
Adam, you're on
chat.
mute.
Oh, Thank you. Thank you.
Got you, fam.
I clarified a little bit in the chat what I was sort of trying to say, which maybe I misspoke when I was saying I don't want to be lumped in. I want Arrow Ace characters, I want Ace characters, and I want Arrow characters. And what I don't want is when we discuss those characters to say that Arrow Ace characters are Ace characters. Those are separate identities, and they deserve their own characters. I don't identify with Elsa or Sherlock because they're not interested in romance, and I am. Calling them ace icons, for me, feels like it's actually dual erasure, because it's erasing aces like me who are interested in romance, and arrows who it erases everyone, really, because it's not accurate to what the identity of this person would be. It's while all aces and arrows and everyone have their own individual experiences, we latch on to a specific identity, a specific label, because it speaks to us and our personal experience. And so if you have a romantic asexual person like me, saying this is an ace icon feels like it's not really understanding the nuances of the Aspec community, and is instead taking a character who really should belong to Arrow Ace people, who do connect to that experience more, and trying to apply it to something wider. But maybe that's just me. But that's sort of what I was trying to say. I don't have a problem being in community with Arrow Ace people, and I don't have a problem with Arrow Ace people having representation. I have a problem with people treating it like being asexual is the same as being Arrow Ace. If that makes more sense.
No, I totally second that, because especially from my perspective, like, it's very awkward to explain to people, like, because I am in a relationship with the man, and it's like, yeah, I'm aspec, but I'm also in a relationship, and like, it's people. There's, I think, a bit of a disconnect where people are like, but you're in a relationship. It's like, yes, but when I watch TV, I'm not like, oh yeah, that Ryan Reynolds is so dang hot. It's it's actually a joke between me and my partner, because he's bi, that I have to ask him what characters are supposed to be hot when we watch movies, so that I can like read the intent of the direction. I mean, I can.
Ryan Reynolds is kind of overrated anyway.
It's because it's like, I can appreciate aesthetics. I'm not blind, but that doesn't always line up with what is conventionally attractive. And so I'll get the second opinion on that. But it definitely is a very different experience from being like completely unseeking any sort of like intimate connection, like romantically.
Yeah, and I get that. Maybe I don't know. I feel like maybe we're splitting hairs a little. I don't want to say it like that, but like, this is one of the reasons why we need so much more representation, so that we can get the entire gradient. Because like having one character on television, like the Glad report that had like, it said it had 8 ace characters, but it was like the ace couple, Courtney and Royce, who are amazing. If you don't follow them on YouTube or your favorite podcast, Spotify, iTunes, follow their podcast, because they broke down this episode, in that episode, like the Glad report, like there really wasn't that many like ace characters on television, and the character timing of the characters is very limited and minuscule in terms of like time they're on television or anything of that nature. Um, but like we didn't really get into discussion of this, but like Big Mouth had like one episode where they kind of discussed asexuality, but it was within one episode. It did have an ace of like a color was a black asexual, young teenager, and it was a really like somewhat good episode. It was a good episode, but it was just one episode, and that the limiting factor. So I totally see what like Adam is saying of like if you put an arrow ace person, then everyone will start pigeonholing like all aces are arrow or all arrows are ace, which is not the case at any stretch, and that's just why we have to have like an entire like gradient of ace representation. Ideally, like for me, a show like I won't go into this far because I don't know if everyone's seen it, but like a TV show like Pose, but for aces would be like something that's really great in representation. Like what Pose did for like for the trans community, which was like literally like some people's first ever exposure to trans people, and it had like trans people of all different uh, you know shades and style, and even though it was predominantly a black cast, which was really great to have that because it was a diverse cast. Had aces and had trans people. It had cis people included as well, and it would show like relationships between like cis and trans people. Getting married, falling in love, and that was like well done, so well perfect. But like that would be something like for aces, like having aces that are romantic, arrow, demi, all in one, you know, sitting. Or we could show like there's such a grand diversity, and it's like, but we're all united by the fact we don't experience sexual attraction in a similar way to what typical compulsory sexuality dictates one must.
Yeah, kind of to Adam's point about like I'm feeling uncomfortable with like certain characters being dubbed ace icons. I can kind of like I do totally understand that, but I guess like where my discomfort comes is like if someone within the asexual community says that like Barbie is an ace icon, I'm like, yes, preach, 100%, yes, queen.
Hence my
But if
headcanon comment, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But if someone like outside of the asexual community is like Elsa is an ace icon, I can kind of understand where you're like coming from because a lot of those you don't know that someone outside of the asexual community has like the understanding of the nuances of the different like like ace spec identities. So like I wouldn't, be bothered like if someone, within the community decided to dub a character an icon because if they feel represented by that character and want to say that character's an icon, like that's totally their prerogative. But when someone outside the community decides what makes a character an ace icon, that's kind of like where I side eye a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know everyone online who like the sexuality of everyone online who is dubbing a character like an ace icon. But sometimes you can like you do know. So it's like basically it just kind of amounts to what Tiger was saying about how we just need more aspec identity in general. So these nuances are like understood widely, and you don't have to worry about like that misunderstanding creeping through. Kind of on that subject, one other thing I wanted to bring up, and I haven't seen this take before, so I could be like totally off base here, but one thing that I kind of like that kind of bugs me with like headcanons about asexual characters, and I do agree that like headcanon whatever you want, like I'm not here to like police, like that's not really something that really bothers me that much, but there's the one thing is like when Wednesday came out, a lot of people were like Wednesday is Arrow Ace and she's like in a relationship with oh my gosh, whatever the other girl's name is who is
Enid.
escaping me.
Oh, the
Enid?
wolf girl.
Enid.
Sorry?
Enid.
Yeah. And like there you can totally have like Arrow Ace characters like in or people in like romantic, well, not romantic relationships, but like they can have girlfriends, like that's totally like that's a thing. But the way that I saw it like portrayed that people were talking about it, it kind of felt like they were just saying that Wednesday is aro ace and has a girlfriend, but just portraying it without any of the nuance of an aro ace person having a girlfriend. Like, it almost felt like they were just saying it kind of like for the sake of, I don't know, representation points, as opposed to like understanding the nuance that comes with an aro ace character having a girlfriend or in like a relationship where one of the person perceives it romantically.
So
That's just my take. So yeah.
So Wednesday was never confirmed as Arrow Ace, but she did not. She explicitly said, "I don't want to be in a romantic relationship ever. That's not for me." Which a lot of
more about fan perception here than like actual show.
Yeah. When I was watching the show, it seemed pretty clear that they were hinting at romantic chemistry between her and the artist guy. Like that seemed like what Netflix was trying to put down.
No. So what I mean is that like when Wednesday is talking to her mother, like she looks at the relationship between her mother and her father, which are, it's, you know, infamously loving, right?
Yeah.
Gomez and Morticia are infamously loving and infamously lovey-dovey.
Of course.
And Wednesday says none of that has any appeal to me. She sees her mother saying, "I want you to have something like that," as her mother saying, "I want you to be like me," which is part of her conflict throughout the thing. And she never does have a girlfriend. Enid is not her girlfriend, like, officially. Right? That was the fandom, which, to be fair, she does have more chemistry with Enid than either of the guys she's in Triangle with. You know, so...
Yeah.
You know, I do think there is... The conversation around whether that was, like, Arrow Ace erasure is, I think, one worth having. Even though she was never confirmed as Arrow or Arrow Ace, she did express a very clear non-interest in that at an age where people are expected to know whether they want that or not. And then the show said, "We're going to put you in a love triangle anyway."
I think what they were trying to convey there, as a room full of cishet writers, is she doesn't want to be like her boring old parents. Not necessarily that she doesn't want a relationship with anyone or a relationship with any boy. Just...
She does express distaste for it, though, for marriage. I think she says she doesn't want to get married. I think she explicitly says that.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
It's been a while since I've seen it as well. Yeah. I just don't want to, like, give Netflix more credit than they deserve, and I don't
for sure. Again, I'm saying that this is something to criticize. Yeah. Like, even even if we're saying that they did intend Wednesday to be Arrow Ace, like, it's still something to criticize. We have about 10 minutes left before we hit the 90-minute mark. So
I mean, I'm okay with going over if other people are.
Well, that's gonna go past midnight for me here.
Okay. Fair enough.
I've personally had a pretty long day as well, so I'm
so
ready to go to bed early.
I figure there is a last question here, which if we do this question, it does mean we don't have any time for Q&A or anything, but I think this is a good question to end on. What is something positive or negative that you wish was talked about more concerning the topic of this panel? So this is something that you just feel like, whether it's positive or negative, just something that you feel like this should be talked about more.
So I think that, like, as a community, we could do a better job of expressing, like, what tangibly we need in terms of representation. And my example with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a pretty good jumping off point for that. Because I think that what media is sorely lacking is a variance of the ways that people express intimacy, the ways that people express, the ways that people engage in relationships, and building lives together. And it's really important to show that sort of thing, not just because of how we exist as people, but also to show people this is how you could be if you wanted to be. So, like, I want to imagine a future where, like, being childless, for example, still results in a person being able to age with grace, because elderly care is more often than not the product of unpaid labor by their younger family members. I want to imagine a future where partners aren't shamed for having separate bedrooms. And obviously, this isn't specific to being aromantic or asexual, but I think that we would benefit from that the most, just based on our lack of that specific orientation.
I think one of the things that for me, I wish we spoke more about with regards to ace representation is like what it really counts as like moving past ace 101, like just moving past definition
Oh, yeah.
of asexuality and getting more into like the high quality showing different like showing ace people as having like complicated and multifaceted and complex story arcs, and getting into the fact of like having a story arc or an ace character. Like I was, you know, I know Yasmin Benoit tried her best to get the storyline absolutely in, and she's written about this multiple times. But like what happened in um, sex education with um, really was limited, and she mentioned that like some of the Netflix writers kind of cut some of the details out that would have shown like more as to why ended up becoming and for a lot of the story she seemed like the antagonist mean character, and it showed like ace characters are like this mean section of people that like you know castigate all the other characters, and is like the ace character that like is a villain and antagonist. And I'm not saying we can't have like ace antagonist characters, but like having the antagonist with like a great storyline as to why they were what they are, is something that was lacking. And that's just like the proper way of doing that, just not cutting those details out, um, so that we actually do get like really authentically good storylines with ace characters, not just this person came out as asexual, let's be happy. This is an ace character, they came out and mentioned asexuality like 2 times in 2 episodes, or they got a mention and they were an ace character but then they went away, kind of like Voodoo in Sirens, where like Voodoo was like the ace character but they kept trying to treat her asexuality. It's like the male character that was showing signs of romantic interest was trying to like wear it down, like wear her down, and try to like she'll date me if I persist hard enough. Like showing the
Gross.
other side of Voodoo, which would be like this person is trying to like really wear me down, and I've had like it's making me feel unsafe, uncomfortable being around him or stuff like that, or like showing like the how damaging it can be to go through things like conversion therapy, or corrective rape, or um, just ace phobic comments, which many ace people can clearly testify and say they have, because many studies show like 1 out of every 6 have been like offered conversion therapy, or 40%, something like that, something really high percent, higher than even other sexual orientations get threatened with corrective rape or, you know, potential coercion and assault. And it's just like showing the other side of that, but showing like that where it comes from and how it affects us, and that's like a really big talking point. Like, okay, we need to move past this, and this is still a thing that society still has got a blind eye to.
This is something that Tiger touched on earlier that I also just kind of want to like reemphasize as an Arrowist person. The importance of like friendship as like something that is not secondary to romance is something I would like to see a lot more in fiction. I mean, again, this isn't also just an ace thing, like, but it does kind of apply to like public perception. Because a lot of it's like basically what I see is if the most important relationship in your life, like you know, according to I can't say the word, metanormativity is it should be your romantic partner, and like that is not true for like basically most arrow aces, and it's like and you see this a lot in fandoms where if two characters are like really close friends, they'll be shipped a lot. And like again, shippers are going to ship. You know, that's just how fandoms work. But I guess like I'd like to see that both on like more, you know, with characters of all genders, like you know, getting like having really really strong friendship bonds that are like explicitly not romantic or sexual, and having those relationships be the like the strongest relationships in the characters' lives. I don't really think we have a lot of that in fiction, at least with characters that aren't like related by blood. And I would like to see a lot more of that to kind of like, I don't know, like help lessen like the wide perception of a metanormativity that kind of impacts a lot of arrow aces and arrows.
I think fandoms need to introduce friendshipping, where you just like ship people who would be the bestest of friends, but like not as a
Preach.
romantic. Just like this person and this person would be amazing friends. Friendshipping.
Truth. Yeah. That's again, that's like showing complexity and getting past the whole, I don't know, pedestalization of romance in our culture, which would be like, I think of Thelma and Louise as probably that's one of my favorite films of all time. Um, Thelma and Louise, which is Susan Sarandon, Gina Davis, the two of them go on like a, you know, nationwide, um, become like America's most wanted criminals because they, you know, killed a guy because one threatened to rape the other one. A guy was a sexual predator and she killed him because she saved her friend. And then they go on like a hunt across the entire nation. The FBI's out to get him, and they ended up riding, which is where the meme of like the two girls who are holding hands in the car comes from, like locked into hands comes from. But their relationship, even though they were like in significant other relationships, like they were married, because like society custom dictates to getting married and being in a relationship. Their most important relationships, which is what I like an article I wrote about, their best relationships were with each other, even though they were only doing, even though I hate saying that still, and I'm still getting past that. They were friends, best friends. Their relationship was the most significant, more than any other relationship. They were ride or dies. Um, that's um, something that needs to be said more often, um, which is that relationships, it doesn't matter what title you put on it, it's the quality of the relationship. And it's, you know, friendship matters as much as any relationship.
Absolutely. And you
For,
know,
for some of us, it's the biggest. For me, it's the biggest.
yeah, I would say that, you know, for me, you know, even as an explicitly someone who does want, you know, a really long-term committed romantic relationship, friends I have are so meaningful to me. You know, like we should not, you know, even if you do want a long-term romantic relationship, even if that is a big goal for your life, to dismiss the meaning that comes from your friendships is, I don't think, very healthy. Um, Shannon, what about you? You're the only one who hasn't spoken up about this yet. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not really adding anything new to the table because Tiger already said the same thing. But just more varied representations, especially just like coming out stories are useful for a lot of people in like discovering their own identities, but sometimes seeing someone go through the process, if it doesn't hit the same, isn't going to be as useful as seeing how that plays out in the long term and realizing, oh yeah, actually that's what I want, um, or that's who I am, and I think, having more representation of the beyond stages. It's kind of like how every superhero movie these days is like an origin story. It's like every queer story is a coming out story, which isn't actually true, but it sometimes feels like they're a little bit oversaturating the market, and I think we could use more more variety, not fewer coming out stories. Just bring up everything else to meet it. Um, I think that is the the big hole right now.
Hey,
Sorry, I did that terribly. Let's finish this panel on the big hole as the last comment.
no, I think ultimately I think that this really does come down to we just need more. We just need more, and you know, everyone is an individual. Um, so when you put representation on the shoulders of this is the ace character, like that's never gonna represent everyone.
Yeah.
Or this is the arrow character, which we like. It's actually odd because we have a lot of characters these now that could be called arrow, but the only confirmed characters, like confirmed in the text, like we have characters saying out loud that they're ace. But I don't think we've ever had a character saying out loud, I'm aromantic, or I'm arrow.
Mm.
Even though we do have a lot of characters that can be read as arrow ace, like Elsa, like Sherlock, like Data, who don't express any interest in romance. There's more characters who don't express interest in romance, but there's more confirmed asexual characters, is I guess what I'm trying to say. At least as far as I can tell. But yeah, I think that that's sort of where we'll wrap up for this first thing. How is everyone feeling about all this?
Feeling great. I honestly was like, if we had any Q&As, I could actually stay on. So I was like, I know I'll make up for it later, pay for it later with school. But yeah, I was like, if we had like any um, Q&As, I would be willing to take them. That's for sure. Like, this was such a great conversation. I would rather not have this be a one-off for the year. So
Mm. Yeah, this was great. Thank you for hosting this, Adam.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love having you all here. Such great different voices to really talk about this, and I really do hope to do this annually. But yeah, what are
maybe
you
the
gonna say?
chat. Well, maybe the chat can. If the chat liked it so much, maybe we'll just make it a. Maybe we can do it as a recurring. Maybe get some more people. Who would be willing to do that, because that's something like, honestly, like, as someone who's a writer and a journalist and everything, um, I think representation matters across the board more than any. We talk
Mm.
about like ace topics, like representation to me is at the top of the list of like most pressing issues, like lacking representation, lacking awareness, like people growing up not aware, because it's not often, asexuality is not taught in school. Obviously, you don't, people are like getting rid of sex ed and in general, so you don't have comprehensive sex ed that includes asexuality, and I think for the first time many people come across asexuality through a character on television or movie or film or literature or any form of media. And I think it's just, and having that when I would have been a teenager would have probably saved me years and years of just mind suck. Let's just say that. Mind suck.
Well,
Yeah,
we can
I would've
totally
saved
talk
a lot
about...
of
Sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
I would have been saved a lot of unsuccessful Tinder dates.
Oof.
Yeah,
And I
realizing later that would never have worked because it by its nature does not meet the precondition for demisexualism of having a strong romantic relationship first. Go figure. Doesn't work.
But so I would be thrilled to talk to you guys about like another time of the year when this might be worth doing, like make it biannual or something, whatever. Like we could talk about that further, because I love doing this, and of course I would love to get more voices, be able to plan this a little further in advance, have things a little bit more like know what I'm doing, because this was the first time and I did not know what I was doing. But this has been amazing. It is midnight here, so I would love to do Q&As, but God, I gotta log off for the night. But man, thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight. This was so meaningful to me that you were able to do this on such short notice. And I loved having your voices as part of this conversation, and I can't wait to do this again. And
Yeah, me too.
thank you so much to everyone who was in the audience. I know some of you have gone to bed, which fair. But I just want to thank you all so much. It was amazing to do this.
Maybe next time we need to do it earlier in the day.
Oh yes, definitely, 100%.
Definitely.
This is but that's gonna come when when we can actually plan in advance. So, amazing! Thank you so much, everyone, and
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thanks for
happy
organizing.
Ace Week.
Happy Ace Week to you too.
Happy Ace Week.
The Ace Week.